Welcome to the second part of this two-part series about how I trade. This one is about, the first part was about the trading app that I use over here, that I've built from the ground up. And the second part now is going to be about TradingView specifically. So not teaching you how to use TradingView, anybody can teach you that. But I am a software developer by trade before I became a trader. That sounds funny to say. But I obviously, when I first started trading, I discovered TradingView, and I love TradingView, and I wanted to be able to, leverage my software development skills to improve how I trade. And when I first started building the app, I thought, oh, it would be cool if I could build a visualization tool, like a charting tool, into the app. But then I realized like TradingView is really good, number one. And they solve all these problems that now I don't have to solve, number two. And B, or number three, I should say, they offer this ability to create custom indicators. And so I started learning Pine years ago now, and I would say at this point I'm probably an expert at writing Pine code. I don't think there's anything I can't do with Pine on the charts that, unless I'm limited in some way. Like, I could talk about the limitations I think I see in Pine at great length, but I think that's just another signal that I have a deep understanding and knowledge of Pine. So, wanted to talk quickly about what I've written for indicators and how I use those indicators. Currently looking at the NVIDIA chart, and these are both, like, typically when I'm looking at a stock, just to try to get an understanding of what's going on, I have a shorter term time frame chart up here on the top of that for that symbol, and then I have the daily time frame down here. That's at first glance, this is what I'm looking at, but these are naked charts, so there's no indicators on here except there's just price and volume, and then you can see the extended hours. This is after hours and pre-market. And that's kind of it. There's nothing else there. This is as naked as it gets. There is a dotted line moving average of the volume down here. That's it. And so like when I started trading, this is all I had, and I started adding things, the stuff that comes with TradingView. But over time, I've discovered that I want to create visualizations that help me to see things I wouldn't see otherwise. That's always been my goal when I write code for the charts. Is I need them to be really useful and show me things that that can help inform my decisions, or just make me aware of something that's happening that my lazy eyes aren't seeing, right? And because a lot of the time what happens is, as you're sitting staring at charts all day long, you'll miss things. Things will happen and you'll miss them. And so I wanted my indicators to alert me when something was happening that I need to pay attention to. So they do everything from literal alerts to visualizations on the screen to show me stuff. The standard, on the daily chart, the standard indicator template that I have is this one I call swing. And so if you don't know about how to set up TradingView, that's not what this is about. I'm going to assume that you know what an indicator template is, which is really just a group of indicators that you've chunked together and given a name, and you know how to make them all up here. I've got one here that I've called swing. I'm going to put that on here, and what you see here is down here you see volume has changed a little bit from what you saw the volume doing over here. That's because I've got my own custom volume indicator that I've written, and I'll talk about that in a minute. And I've added this. You see this red OS line, that means oversold. So on the daily time frame, price would need to get to this level to be oversold on the daily. And then a bunch of moving averages were added. The main one here, this aqua blue, is the 50-day moving average. The orange one is the 5-day moving average. Those are on the daily time frame, the ones that I care about the most. They help me to really gauge how healthy is this stock. And on the video right now, we're just sort of chopping in this range, so it doesn't really tell you much. But there are ones that they matter to me a lot, and I think they matter to a lot of traders. The other two that you see here are my standard. I call these my MA rider MAs. So I think most people trade with 2 MAs on most charts, and they could, some people do use the 8 and 21. I use the 12 and 26. It just depends on what you're comfortable with. But the point isn't what MA are they trading on, but just that you have some MAs that you use to help guide you into what's happening with the stock. And so I have this concept I use called MA riding, where if you can identify on a chart what moving average is supporting that price movement, then it's considered riding it, and then any test of that MA should be bought on the way up or sold on the way down, assuming that it's going to continue supporting it, right? And that's why I don't think that the period of the MAs that you trade or use for this matter, really. It just matters on, you find out which time frame they work on and then you use them. So those ones I use a lot as I'm navigating up and down time frames, trying to figure out which of these is supporting or not. Right now, it just looks kind of messy. And that's because NVIDIA is basically chopping sideways in a range. But now we'll look at what I use on the 30-minute chart. So on the 30-minute chart, my standard, actually, I should even just say the 30-minute chart, but on the smaller time frame intraday charts that I keep above my daily time frame chart, my standard indicator template that I use, I call it session to session. And I'll put it on here. And it has now added this indicator up here, which also is present on this one, which is my multi-time frame RSI grid. This is by the way, almost all of the indicators that I make are free on TradingView. I give them away for free, and they're open source, so you can see how they work. This is essentially showing me what is the RSI level on every different time frame listed here. So the 5-minute, 15-minute, 30-minute, 1 hour, etc. And you can go in. I've got a few disabled. You can add some more in there. And these will change color depending on if on that time frame RSI is overbought or oversold. And it also has the ability to show you visually on the chart when multiple of those time frames are overbought or oversold together. So you see here, if I zoom in on this spot here, there's a bit of a green circle, and then it says 30M. That means that when price got down here on NVIDIA that day, it was oversold on the 5-minute, the 15-minute, and the 30-minute time frame together at the same time. And so that's just a visual. This is what I was talking about before, where I want to see visually on the chart, things to tell me, hey, pay attention over here, And then the main one that I use, this is probably my bread and butter for how I trade, is all these labels you see here. This is one indicator I've written called day trader levels. And what it shows you is the levels from the prior day. So yesterday high of day, yesterday low of day, the value area high and low from the prior day, the point of control from the prior day, and the halfway point in the prior day. And then for today, you see the pre-market high, the pre-market low, and the opening price right up here. And from the close yesterday, you see the close value. So I can expand all this, and you'll see, yesterday high of day, YHOD, close, yesterday value area high, YVAH, etc. And these levels are levels that matter to me. I've seen over time how they matter, and I use them every day to make trades. So for example, right now, NVIDIA tanked all morning, but I've been watching it because I think it's going to hold. My expectation is it's actually going to set a higher low, and I want it to do that above yesterday low of day. And I think it might be doing it right now, but ideally I'd like actually it to really come down here and test that. Anyway, I digress. These are levels that I care about. And when I make a trade based off of one of these levels, I call it a level burner. And that over here, so I mentioned in the last video that on NVIDIA, I made a trade this morning that was a level burner. Well, it's because I made a trade you can see this loser here that I have was betting that when it dropped here, it was going to bounce off yesterday high of day. So that was a level burner trade that failed. But that's the idea, is that based on the daily levels from the prior day, based on the whole chart overall, I use these levels as drivers of decision making. And so, for example, if we jump over to the QQQs, this morning I was watching the Qs, and all morning long, for the first hour and a bit, it was holding it didn't get above the pre-market high, it didn't get below the pre-market low, and it was holding above yesterday high of day for a really long time till it broke it right here. And so, you know, as I'm looking at cues and I'm trying to figure out, do I think cues are going to go up from here or go down from here? I'm like, well, if they're going to be strong today, they need to hold over that yesterday high of day. And if they do hold over yesterday high of day and begin to push up to new highs, that is super bullish. They weren't even able to fill the gap, right? But that's not what happened. What happened is they pushed back down into through yesterday high of day and back into yesterday's range. Now that to me doesn't mean that it's necessarily bearish. We could just be going to set a higher low on like the 1 hour or 4 hour or 2 hour time frame or something like that. And now I care about what happens as it comes down and tests the value area low, which is down here. I care about the yesterday low of day. Is it going to hold those and get some sort of balance here, indicating that yes, you know, we're actually going to round this thing back out. But I trade against those levels, and so this is what that indicator is for. And this indicator comes with alerts, so I can, as I'm doing prep work on the day on any different chart, I can say, okay, if a certain level breaks on a certain symbol, alert me to that, and I can then set that and forget it. And then when it alerts me, then I jump back over to the chart and get involved in a trade. And so, in a nutshell, those are the main ones that I use. Now, if you go into the smaller time frame, I'll talk a little bit about the volume indicator. This is my most recent addition to my arsenal of trading, which it's a little bit of a pain because if you look, I'm just going to put this back to the TradingView standard volume. TradingView by default, they give you these volume bars that appear at the bottom of your chart, and they don't come with any legend values, so you don't get to see how many shares are traded in these volume bars because it doesn't have a legend for that here, which is fine. I don't think most people need it. They don't really care to see exactly how many shares are traded, and it's kind of nice to have this here. But as an indicator developer, I can't do that. There's no way for me to put an indicator on the chart in this way. I have to put it in its own pane here. So you can see I've got this like pane here that holds the volume, and I'll just keep it expanded now so you can see it. And you see my volume looks a little different than their volume, right? You can see there's different colors going on. There's a background thing here going on. It's got a box here that says some information. So these are all things that I've added to it to help me make decisions, right? So one of the main things that I did, and the reason that I made this indicator and made a custom volume indicator was because I did a ton of research and work into looking into relative volume. And I wanted to take the learnings that I had made and the code that I've written and apply them to the volume indicator so that I could see things that I wasn't seeing on regular volume bars. And so what you see here, you see all of these bars are regular volume bars. They're just colored in a different way. And then we've got this dotted plot here, which is showing you the average, the moving average of the volume throughout the day. And so you can just see when is volume going above the average and when is it below the average. And then behind you see there's this area plot, right? A shaded plot behind all the volume bars. That is showing you the relative volume on a candle by candle basis. And so relative volume is basically, I spent a ton of time working on this, making it functional for me. But basically what I track is minute by minute, I track the volume and the average of that volume over a period of time into the past. And I'll tell you what that is right now. I think, the RVol period is 30. So over the last 30 days, I track minute by minute the average of each minute bar. And then I accrue that to give you information. So right now on the 5-minute chart, I'm going to actually just expand this. On the cues here, you can see that this plot here shows you the relative volume minute, in this case 5 minute by 5 minute, over the last 30 days. And you can see quite often, like even this morning, there was a spike on the cues here off the open in volume, but it wasn't as high as the average. We've had more volume on the first 5-minute bar on average over the last 30 days than we got today. And then a sharp drop today, and the average, it was higher on the way down here. And then suddenly here on this candle right there, where we spiked up above the high that had been set off the open, we actually had a spike above the relative volume, and it was a it wasn't just above, it was slightly, like I think 1.5x above or something like that. And so that's why I changed the color here. And so this is stuff that I care about and I want to know. If a specific volume bar is much bigger than the average of the last 30 days for that exact time slot on the day, I want to know. And I want to see it bright like this, right? So these are sort of a darker purple because they're like over, I think, what is it, 1.5 or 2x the average? Let me see here. High average volume is 2. So yeah, they'll be dark if they're 2 times the average volume, and they'll be this like bright fuchsia color if they're 1.5 times the relative volume. And so you'll see both when they're above average and when they're above relative. And to me, what I find is that the relative volume spikes are the ones that really matter and will make a big difference in intraday. And they'll often be a signal that, there's a major price shift happening, or something like that. And so let me get back to today. Yeah. So you can see here, I'm going to just shrink this down a little bit. As we were getting to these lows here, how would you know that it's going to bottom here? Look at the relative volume spikes there, right? So if you were thinking of, NVIDIA as a buy, as it's coming down towards yesterday low of day, and you're like, man, where would I get long? Where would I take a shot at this? You're watching the volume and the price is coming down. There's one volume spike right here, but you can see it was on the flush down. So that's not the spot for the buy. Then we're trickling down, and then here we get a big volume flush down, another one there, and another one there on the move up. These three are telling you, this is an area where people are trading a lot more than they normally trade, and that's a spot you might want to get long for this, even if it's just a mean reversion back to the MA that it's riding, which in this case is the 5-minute moving average, this blue line here. It's riding it down because you can see price touched it there, came down, came back, touched it here, came down, got over it here, is coming back down to test again, and now we're going to see, is this going to bear flag or what? Anyway, I digress. So this is how I use the volume indicator, and I use this all the time. It also tells you on the day what's the relative volume. So we're currently at a 1.01 on NVIDIA. So basically it's average for relative volume on the day. And the stock itself has already moved just over 1 ATR on the day, 1.02. So basically it's already filled 1 ATR on the day. And so you might not expect it to do much beyond this. Like if you're thinking, oh, I'm a bear and I want it to be a bear flag and flush low, well, be aware you're already 1 ATR down, or you filled a full ATR on the day already. What's the likelihood based on the volume of the day that it's going to continue further? We're already at the relative volume for this time of day is basically on point we're on the average for this far into the day right now. Do you think relative volume is going to change and go higher? If we get a huge flush? Maybe, but I mean, I wouldn't be betting on that looking at this. We're in the range on the daily here. We're near the bottom of it. And like we already had a big move up, a big flush down. Is it really going to fall? Is today the day NVIDIA is going to just tank out of this range and drop? I doubt it. And so that's why I'm looking at this, thinking about longs, sticking in the range and pushing back up. Anyway, so these are the two main templates that I use for my trading, is the session to session and the swing trade. Now I have lots of other indicators that I've written and I can talk about them at length. And maybe I'll just talk about one more, and this is, I'll do two. So the first one I'll put on here, which is, I call it the MA rider. And this is a super, super simple, I'm just going to get rid of this, a super simple one that I just wanted to explain what I was talking about before with the two MAs that people trade with. So currently, we're on the 5-minute NVIDIA chart. I'm just going to expand this and make it bigger, and I'll go full screen here. So I would call NVIDIA a 5-minute MA rider right now, because you can see price every time. So price is moving down, comes up, it tests the 5-minute EMA 12, comes down, moves up, tested the 5-minute EMA 12, came down, moved up through it, and now is like balancing down below. So that's your first sign, your first break of that moving average that gives you the clue that this thing might be wanting to turn around now. Doesn't mean it will, but something has changed. It could not get above it, could not get above it, and now it finally broke above it. So something has changed. This is an area where you might want to consider managing a trade you're in or initiating a trade you want to initiate. Personally, I'm not a fan of buying bear flags like this. But anyway, that's not the point. The point is that these are super, super useful and they work on any time frame. So for example, let's go look at a different time frame. Let's say we're looking at the 30-minute. And right now, okay, we're looking at the 30-minute. You can see that this blue line, price was oscillating around it on the way down. So it's not a 30-minute MA rider. How would I think about figuring out what is the MA that this is riding? Well, this MA that I've written isn't a standard MA, of course. It's one that I custom coded. I call 2 MAs. The MA length of the first one is 12 and the second one is 26. If you were an 821 trader, you could put 8 in here and 21 in there. It doesn't really matter. I trade EMAs, maybe you trade MAs. You could change this to whatever you want. But the cool thing is this. So I'm going to change the time frame of this, and you're going to see a couple changes here. So right now, you see it's just the same. If you leave this blank, it's going to write these as if it's on the same time frame as the chart, the 30-minute. I'm going to change this to 2H, and now it's going to adjust these MAs to be the 2-hour EMA 12 and the 2-hour EMA 26. And you can see it put this little 2H here to show you that this moving average is not the charts now. It's the 2-hour moving average. And now you can see, look at this. NVIDIA was a 2-hour moving average rider on the way down here. And yesterday, after hours, it finally broke that. And this morning was holding above it, and now it broke back down below. But again, just like we saw in the smaller time frame here at this bottom, this is an area of change. If you're in a trade, you might want to consider managing it here, or if you're not in a trade, you might want to consider initiating it here. And so this is something that I do all the time. I'm taking the moving average that I look at, and again, it doesn't matter what moving average you use. It's just find the way that the moving average works with your chart, find the time frame that it makes sense on, and then look for something to change or play that it will continue, right? So on this drop, it came up here and it tested it and it failed, right? The next time it tested it, which by the way, I think this was a fake print, but let's just pretend for now that this was a real move. If there was a huge spike up here to this, and I knew that we'd had this huge drop, and then we tested it and failed here, and now we're testing it again, that's a really great spot to try to take a short, assuming that the moving averages are going to continue working, right? So let's pretend that you did. Now you've got, a move back down, and if you see this wick, you're like super confident that this is going to continue to go down. Gap down the next morning, and I'd be selling or covering my short on that gap down. So anyway, that's when I talk about 2 moving averages and how I use them and why I keep them on every chart. These are on every single chart I look at. I always have my 2 moving averages, and I want to know, what is supporting or what is resistance with these moving averages. I just happen to get clarity. I find the 30-minute chart really useful, so I don't like to move away from it when I'm looking intraday, and instead of like flipping between the 1 hour, the 4 hour, the daily, blah, 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 I keep this in the 30-minute and I adjust my moving averages time frame to see, what is it working for or against. Okay, so that's a super useful one. I use this all the time on every chart. And last but not least, I'll talk about this one, which is one of my faves. It's one that I custom coded. It's an idea I had that I find is very, very, very useful. And the idea is basically, I think that a lot of trade ideas for me, and a lot of when I first started trading, the most success that I had was trading mean reversion. And I wanted to know when things are getting extreme, I want to be getting involved, right? And so for example, today on this low right now, it's not really in an extreme. And I know that because, let me just get rid of some of these other indicators here. Okay, I know that we're not really in extremes because of this indicator here. We're in the zone where lows are made, but we're not below that zone. Extreme would be below that zone. And the reason, so where these zones come from is I have a ton of code behind this that I've written to identify pivots. And you see here it says 1H pivots 4-hour EMA. So what this is showing you is this blue line here is the 4-hour EMA 12 that I trade. And then there's the 4-hour EMA 26 there along with it. And the reason it's moving in chunks like this is because we're on the 30-minute chart. I could actually smooth this out if I wanted to, but just for the purpose of the video. I'm just not going to do that. And then, so those are the MAs that I'm going to be considering to be the mean, right? So this is the middle of the price action is this moving average here on this chart. The 4-hour moving average is the mean, and that might change depending on the symbol that you're looking at. But I find that this is the one that works for me the most consistently. And then I want to know when price gets extended really far beyond that to the upside or really far beyond that to the downside, I want to know that. I want to be alerted to that. And so what I do is I measure the pivots. So I look at the hourly pivots. See, it says hourly pivot there. And I'm just going to show you, I'll turn on the pivots so you can see them. Show pivots. There it is. And so you can see there's a pivot point, low here, a high here, low here, high here, low here, high here. And so it tracks the pivot movements, and it measures the maximum they get above the moving average and the maximum they get below the moving average over a moving average of pivots. And then it's able to tell you the average low and the average high of those ranges above and below. And then it can identify when price is spiking beyond those ranges. And so whenever that happens, that to me is an extreme condition below or above that moving average that we're tracking. And it's something that I want to be made aware of. So I have alerts that get thrown when it gets extended below. You see there's a little rocket ship here where it got below the low of the average pivots down, and it fires this rocket ships at me and alerts me to that. And then same thing on the other side. It moves back up. And here's an alert to the upside that, okay, we're now extended to the top side. And same thing, now we're extended to the downside. We did continue lower here, but it was at a rate that was acceptable to this indicator, so it didn't get below the extremes and fire again on this low. You know, nothing is perfect, but I just want to know, like, a lot of the time if I'm thinking about getting long, so for example, if we've been coming down here for days, we're a little wobbly, but then we set another low here in these in this pre-market, and I'm like, is this something that I want to be interested in buying even pre-market? I can flip this on and see how extreme is this. And no, it's not extreme. It's at the low end. It could definitely go lower from there. I didn't buy any of that. The buy would have been back here. Sell some into this pop, put a stop below here somewhere, and then you can hold on for a move back up. That's sort of how this indicator would work. And so this is one that I use even just like, I don't keep it on all my charts all the time, but if I'm thinking about a mean reversion, so we had this huge drop from the all-time high that it set the other day and just kept going down, 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 down. And as I'm thinking about where should I get long, this would have been a spot where it's firing here, and I've been like, this would have been a buy at this low, and then you could have sold a portion here. And then I wouldn't have been that satisfied with this move. I might have actually not held this overnight, but maybe you did. Maybe you go underwater. Who knows? Nothing's perfect. But then you get another move down, and there's another rocket ship down here, and then a strong move up. Actually, yesterday it didn't feel strong. It was strong into the close, and then a failure back down. This morning when I was looking at this chart, I saw for all this rocket ship's power and it pushing back up to the moving average, it didn't really get above the mean here, right? And so this morning I actually had a position that I sold here pre-market on the PPI numbers, because I was like, this feels like a short still. The market is rallying, lots of names are trying to get higher, but it really just made it back to the mean. I don't think it's going to go from here. And I sold, and then lo and behold, we're back to the lows here. So anyway, that's the other one that I use pretty frequently. There's a lot of other things that I've got up here, and I don't want to go into them in detail, but those are the main ones that I trade with day to day. And I also, like, one last thing I'll add is that TradingView allows you to connect with different brokers. And so the application that I built here, I built on top of TradeStation's API. And so I can connect to TradeStation over here in TradingView. And anything that I'm initiating here in my application, it shows up here in TradingView. And I can manage the trades visually over here on TradingView as well. I can drag stops around, adjust positions, whatever. I don't have to do it all in here. I can also do it here. And so it's a really great combination, and that's why I've made the application fit this narrow width and then I just squeeze TradingView into this other side here on my laptop. This is my main window that I trade with, and I have other screens where I'm looking at other charts. But this is the main thing I'm looking at every day. Is I've got my application here on one side that allows me to initiate my trades and get all the benefits of that I talked about above other brokers. And then over here I've got my visualizations and things that I want to see that help me to understand the charts better and make decisions and even manage the trades that I'm initiating over here. So I'll stop there. That's a full hour of content about how I trade and the stuff that I use. I hope you guys find that interesting and useful. I'll see you soon.